proudest day, and the proudest time, and the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.
Welcome along to the 2025 season of Krunching Gears. Connor, we're on episode 3 already, and it hasn't even been a rally. It's been crazy, but it's been brilliant.
Hey, look, it's been brilliant. We've been very organised. We've a lot of content planned and a lot already captured. And yeah, it's amazing to think we haven't even got to the start of the WRC season or the Irish Tarmac season yet. And yeah, we're on episode 3. That's nuts.
Yeah, and once again, please like, share, rate, subscribe. The numbers in the last, last 2 episodes now have just been completely blindsided. It's really appreciate it. We've set the bar really high with the Formula 2 special and then the Mats van der Brand special, and we're in for another treat in this episode here now as well.
That's it. Look, I hope everybody enjoys this one. We're only a few days away from Monte Carlo, and we wanted to talk to one special person about, the WRC season that's just been and the one that's about to hit us.
Yeah, and we had a brainstorming session, but the one name that just kept coming up every time we thought who we were going to get to speak to, it had to be Becs, really, didn't it?
Did. Look, Becs Williams, she's the voice, the face. She is, the person synonymous with rallying. Ultimate commentator, ultimate interviewer, and a fantastic storyteller.
Yeah, and a great guest and a lovely person to bit as well. But here, no point in us telling you all about it. Let's hear from the lady herself, Becs Williams.
Becs, 2024 season, right up to the wire in Japan to decide the driver's title, the manufacturer's championship. From your perspective, did it really deliver this year? It seemed to be drama and excitement throughout the year.
It did. I think it did deliver. The fact that both championships went down to the wire is something special. It's always special when one goes down to the wire, but have both go down to the wire and then go down to the final day as well, and then the final stage for the manufacturers. We couldn't have wanted for better. And I think that, the whole season was exciting. It got off to a bit of a controversial start, maybe, with, new point system coming in, and everyone was very confused as to how that was going to work and confused by the system as it happened at first. But at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we were then kind of gifted with this amazing fight for both of the titles. The manufacturer's one was arguably more exciting in Japan. And I have to say, from a very personal perspective, I was up at the final power stage podium because I was tasked with interviewing the team bosses. As soon as we found out whether it was Hyundai, whether it was Toyota who won, it was my job to grab both actually, Jari Matti and Cyril Abiteboul. And I thought this could be quite an easy task. So it was quite quiet around the podium. There were lots of fans, but they were fenced off and they were very respectful, as Japanese fans are, because normally podiums can be chaos. And we had a little area set up, TV, seats, tables. Everyone was just sat there really nicely. And Cyril arrived first. He sat down. He was watching the coverage. Then Jari Matti arrived, explained to them that I needed them. As soon as it finishes, I need you both. And they were like, yep, absolutely. And there was not many people around. Then all of a sudden, everyone descended. The drivers started finishing the the power stage. So Taco was joined. Thierry arrived. Not Oit, sorry, because he'd already crashed out that morning. Other drivers arrived, and all of a sudden there was chaos around this table and this screen, and they were all watching to see whether Toyota, who would, odds on now favourite to do it as long as Ogier and Evans completed, or whether, something would happen, and you just didn't know whether anything was going to happen because we'd had so much drama already. This quiet area became a buzz of people. The drivers, the co-drivers, the team bosses, but then it seemed like every media outlet in Japan was there. There were cameras everywhere, photographers everywhere. It was a mess of people, but watching a Kia Toyota sitting there, looking at the screen, and Taka had his hands on Akio's shoulder and was just, kind of holding him. And they knew as long as Elvin got over the line, that was it. They'd done it. To watch it and to see it and to feel it, that was incredible. That's a moment I will not forget for a long time. I hope it came over on the cameras, but to be there and hear people's breathing, it got so quiet. That was special.
Yeah, like as a spectator watching it on TV or on the laptop, the tension was there. You could feel the tension. And I don't think it's something you could have staged, to have not only the team principals there, but as you say, like the senior management from both Hyundai and from Toyota there in the room, not knowing which way it was going to land.
Exactly. No one knew which way it was going to land. And I think after everything that had happened, obviously earlier that morning with Oit crashing out on the first stage of the final day of the year, no one was counting any chickens. It just wasn't a done deal. And I think, Seb, when he was interviewed at the stage end by Molly, because the boys in commentary thought, maybe it's done. Maybe, they've got the manufacturers championship. And Seb was like, I think we still need Elvin to finish. And they absolutely did need Elvin to finish. And then watching Elvin on the final 100 meters or so, you're like, oh my God, just don't clip a curb. Don't roll it. Don't do anything stupid. Not that he would, but because the day had just been quite dramatic. And the final few events in the build-up had been dramatic with, Neuville making mistakes in Central European Rally, with Seb, with, unusually all of his mistakes that he'd made as well. Everyone was just like, don't throw it away now. But I think for me, it was the perfect ending for Thierry to get his championship title, which we all had been waiting for a long time, as well as him. All of us watching had been waiting for that. But for Toyota to take the manufacturers championship so that, both teams had been, given a prize, let's say. But Cyril Abiteboul was notably disappointed in the final interview because, they were on the crux of sealing both championships, and to have one then brutally taken away from them on the final day was a real... I think they really felt that. He said at the time, we knew it was going to be a Hyundai driver that would be a world champion. For a while, we've already kind of celebrated that fact because we knew it would be one of our drivers. So it was quite bitter, I think, a sensation and feeling to not be able to hoist the manufacturer's crown as well. But they come back for another year, so they'll have another crack at it.
But isn't it funny? We find we focus on the drivers, championship, and who's going to take but the manufacturers. It's really all about the manufacturers' title.
Always has been, yeah.
And that's always been, as you say, it's always been the way.
I remember having quite an argument many, many, many years ago at Rally Sweden, and I think we're going back to like 2003 time. I was having an argument with a guy who'd come in to report on the championship who was adamant that the driver's title was the most important thing. And I was trying to say, well, yeah, it might be to the fans and it might be to you and I, but for the manufacturers, they don't care about the driver's title. It's the manufacturer's championship. That's all they care about. The driver's title is just cherry on the cake at the end. Oh, we've got that. Okay, great. But we want the cake. And, they want to sell cars. That's why they're here. That's why they're in championships, to promote their brand. And if they're not doing that, they're not the best brand out there, then that is seen as a failure in their eyes. So it is always going to be the manufacturer's championship first and foremost, which is why we have seen historically a lot of team tactics over the years. And those team tactics play into the hands of the manufacturer's championship over drivers.
Yeah, because, it has become, the amount of money that's been spent now, like it's crazy. Like we're not even go down the figure, but like as you say, they're then there to sell a product. And at the end of the day is far more important to them, really.
Absolutely. That's what they're there to do. They want to sell cars, and they want to be seen as the best manufacturers who have registered. And that's the important thing, be all and end all.
And Did a different Thierry Neuville show up this year? Like he seemed to be more relaxed, considering the amount of pressure was on him. And even we had Seb Ogier back to his, mind games and trying to stir things up with Thierry, and he seemed unfazed by it all.
You got two questions there.
Yeah.
Remind me of Rally Acropolis in a moment because I'll forget it. And we'll talk about mind games because that's when they came in. First of all, Thierry, has he changed? I don't think we've seen, it's a difficult one because I don't think we've seen a completely different Thierry Neuville this year. What I will say is, like all of us, he's getting older. And with age, he's getting wiser and he knows how to control himself a little bit more. And I think that is what we've seen a lot of this year is composure. He has been able to completely keep his focus and not be distracted by anything that is going on around him. That's what I've seen the most from Thierry this year. And the composure is the main thing for me. Twofold. We'll come to Rally Acropolis now because that's where the mind games started to creep in with Sébastien Ogier saying, that he didn't believe that it was the best driver or the fastest driver that had won out there this weekend. And he was really trying to all weekend with Thierry. He was saying all kinds of things throughout the weekend, peppering his interviews with little digs at Thierry, and Thierry was not rising to it at all. He wasn't responding. Even though he knew what Seb was saying, he wasn't responding to it. And even when he was put under pressure by journalists to say, well, what have you got to say to him? And he's like, yeah, I have nothing to say. He kept it all and he kept his composure. And what was interesting about the whole mind games thing for me is that pre-event, I'd been interviewing the drivers for what we call sit-down interviews, when we put them in front of the backdrop and we talk to them about a few events ahead, and we talk to them about specific things that you'll see in features dotted through All Live or on any WRC TV product. And one of the key things that I'd spoken to all three championship contenders at the time, or was it four at that point? It was still four. Elvin was still in the game. So it was Elvin, it was Seb, it was Thierry, it was Oit. And I talked to them about their strengths and weaknesses. And I'd mentioned to Seb his ability to be able to psych people out and the fact that he can get into drivers' heads. And did he see that as a strength? And he laughed when I said it. It was like, oh, you've risen a memory for me. I used to be pretty good at doing that, actually. Because, Jari Matti would just crumble under, Seb's little digs here and there. And then all of a sudden, during that weekend, he comes out with all of this stuff. And I'm like, did I start that? And I'm glad if I did, because it's quite entertaining for all of us. And it was really interesting to see how it split people's opinion on social media. There was a lot of people going, he is disrespectful. How can he be saying these things? And then you had the other group that were like, yes, come on, a bit of fighting to all get in there, nudge him. And I have to say, I'm kind of more on that side of things because you like to see a little bit of pushing. He wasn't being nasty, but he was being typically Seb Ogier. And it felt like, about 5-6 years ago when he was doing that with Jari Matti or whoever, because it wasn't just Jari Matti that he used to target, it was anyone. And I think he has got a very good way of getting into people's minds because he is, a multiple world champion and he is respected. And what he says is, you take it to heart if you're a competitor and if you're his competitor. But Thierry didn't. And I loved that. I loved the fact he did not respond. It was the classiest thing he did all year because historically he would have said something, but he didn't this year. And I think that's one of the main things that changed. His composure changed. And it's one thing we discussed a little bit in his championship winning interview when he came back to service at Rally Japan, when Oit had crashed, he came back and he was champion. And I was the first person to interview him then. And I said to him, I'm amazed that you kept your composure when you had car troubles on Friday and lack of power. What was going on? He could have been completely out of the game potentially. I said, I so respect that. And he did his classic Thierry, I kept my composure. And he said inside, it was a completely different thing. Outwardly, he kept his composure, but inside, he was like freaking out that everything was going wrong, and he was going wrong on the very last rally. But he managed to keep his composure. And if I think we look back across the whole season, you can certainly see it, the focus, the composure. It's just pushed him up a level again this year, and he truly does deserve the title. He has been a fantastic competitor out there this year. He's done exactly what he needed to do, and he's played the game, and he's taken the success. And I'm really delighted that he's done that. Don't ask me who I think is going to be champion next year, because I have no idea.
We're going to ask that
I've
later.
already been asked it. I was in Cardiff last week. Me and a friend, we had a night out prior to New Year's Eve. We were there on the 30th of December. That was our New Year's Eve. And we were back in the hotel bar at the end of the night. And we it's our pretend New Year's Eve. So we'd had a little bit to drink. But so had another lovely man who may well be watching this, called Dewey John, who came over to our table and in full Welsh accent. It was lovely. You don't know me, but I think I know you. Are you Becs Williams? And he follows All Live, he follows rallying, he loves everything rallying. And he sat down and we had a great chat. But he said to me, right, he's going to win next year. And I was like, no idea, because with Rovanperä back and people changing teams, not many obviously, but things have moved around a little, and it could be a very interesting season ahead.
Because there are going to be new variables coming into the play next year. Rovanperä back, no hybrid, tweaks to the car. There's going to be, and then our own Josh McErlean stepping into M Sport.
Indeed,
it's going to be not maybe a clean sheet of paper, but it's going to be a fresh sheet of paper again.
I think it is. I think I love getting off to, a start in a season. It's always great right at the beginning when you don't know what's going to happen. You can have your theories, and we'll ask the drivers again, as we always do, I'm sure, what their predictions are for this year. And I think Ogier was the one that got it almost spot on and said both championships would go down to the wire in Japan when we asked him his prediction for the year. I think with Fourmaux making the decision to move to Hyundai, which was one of maybe the worst kept secrets in the championship service park, and with Rovanperä coming back, Ogier still doing his partial season. How is Evans going to respond now to the fact that Neuville got the title this year? How does it all work? Sami Pyrie stepping up, as you mentioned, Josh McErlean. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things to look at and a lot of different layers, I think. And, we haven't heard yet exactly what Sesks is doing, but he will be doing something. That boy is not going to be sat on the sidelines. It's unfortunate that we're not going to see him for a full program, but we will be seeing him.
Sorry, go ahead, Conor.
No, I was just going to say, with regard to Martin Sesks, he almost had a podium on his first attempt in Rally 1. It was an incredible drive he's had.
Yeah, it was. And again, behind the scenes stuff, I was up at the podium, the power stage podium at Rally Latvia. And I was doing as well as interviewing team bosses there, I was doing the announcing for the podium. And of course we're watching, and Martins develops a problem with the car, and I just look across to Rich Milner and his head is just in his hands, and it was painful to watch because all the Latvian fans are watching the big screen in front of them, and we're right, the podium is right to the side of the stage. So I was going to say he zooms past, but he didn't zoom at all. He kind of puttered past, and everyone was just like, "Oh, don't believe it. And he just, dropped out of podium contention. And after the podium is finished now on WRC events, we have what used to be the post-event press conference, which has changed dramatically and is always held now at the podiums. So, we interview the top 3 drivers and winning driver and co-driver, team boss. But considering what had happened, we put up another chair, and it was like, Martins, you get up here as well. There's no way we can do this Meet the Crew session without you being here.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Latvian fans would have, I don't know, would have thrown rocks at us or whatever if we hadn't got him up there as well. And it was really quite humbling to see him handle himself so well, because there must have been serious disappointment from his heart that he hadn't claimed a podium. Yet he got out of that car, he hugged Rich Milliner, and he shook hands with everybody, and he came up onto the stage, and all the drivers went and shook his hand. And he was proud of what he'd done. And I think there was just pride. There was Latvian pride throbbing through the crowd. It really was amazing to see. But he could have been so disappointed. He could have been angry. He could have been kicking things. He could have been so different. But he chose it didn't happen. But it can happen again.
It just shows the level of maturity, that he has already processed, and at such a young age, that guy's going to really go far. Like, never something like that's just pulled away from you. It'd be very easy to throw the toys out of the pram.
Oh, completely! It would have been so easy for him to throw the toys out of the pram. And I hugged him before he came up on stage, and I told him how proud I was of him, because I've seen him over many, many years now in ERC and in WRC. I feel like I've known him a long time, and he gave us, as journalists and as rally fans, he gave us a lot of energy. When he came in, he transformed, and hopefully gave our drivers something to think about as well, because his stage end responses, his enthusiasm and his passion for the sport shone through, and it was like a bolt of energy for everybody watching. The amount of engagement we got when Martins was in Latvia, was in Poland, and then in Chile, it was off the scale, because people want to see someone doing well, and they want to see someone who loves what they're doing, telling the world that they love what they're doing. The pressures for our drivers right at the top level are there, and they're doing it all the time, and they are in that very lucky position that they are doing the job that they love. But sometimes they don't let us know that they love that job, and I think people watching,
tell their face.
People watching can feel that, and you get these young guys coming in then with this absolute verve for life, like Cesc. Sami Pajari was the same. I mean, different temperament. He's a Finn, and he's far more within himself, but his humour is there, but his love is there. And as soon as he got his stage win, I mean, shaking the camera, and, we want to see that. We want to see these guys show how much they love what they're doing, because they're doing one of the most incredible sports in the whole world. And sometimes we don't sense that because they're used to it, and the pressures are different. And I completely get that as well. They have, at that top level, they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders to be delivering expert stages every single stage, whereas the younger guys are still learning their trade, and they're having fun doing that, and that's coming through. And it's great right now that we have a mixture of the both, because as well as that full-on serious world, you need that lightness that we're getting from the younger guys.
Yeah, Adrian Fourmaux is very much in that former category as well too. The movie quotes, the things that how he even has time to even think about those things, and he just weaves it into the conversation so eloquently.
Do you know what's the funniest thing about all of that is the number of times it's been PK at a stage end when he's done the movie quotes, and PK has not had an absolute clue. And Julian as well. Julian is just like, what did he say? But for most of the time, PK can't hear him. So he's like, I'm sorry, what? And it gets completely lost on both of them. It's been so funny. But yeah, Fourmaux has been, for me, he's been the star of the season. I've really enjoyed the performances that we've had from Cesc and from Pajari coming in. But Fourmaux has, I think, surprised a lot of people, surprised himself.
Yeah.
Even, you go back to Monty and the early rallies this year. I mean, Sweden, he was on the podium, and he so didn't expect that. And I recorded a Backstories podcast with him immediately after Sweden, and it was probably maybe 3 days after the rally finished, and he was with his family at home in France. Then gone to the family home, and he was just like, "I can't believe it's happened." He was like, I thought he would come much later in the season. He was delighted, but he was still a little bit like, I've been on the podium. He was still a bit shocked. And it was really cool to see that he was surprised. And it's a real journey, isn't it? Because he started his WRC career really quite late.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the likes of Rovanperä now, and you're looking at the likes of Pyrie, who also started rallying when he was young. It's very difficult to compare anyone to Rovanperä because he's such a unique competitor. But for Adrian to be in university studying to be a doctor, and just his brother persuaded him to do Rally June, which you pay €20 for in France. You go and compete against thousands of others, and it gets whittled down to just a handful, and then it gets whittled down to one. And he did that, and that's what Ogier did. That program is utterly incredible and should be the benchmark for every single motorsport ASN around the world. The French Federation do a great job in collaboration there, because he had the backing then of the French Federation for a whole year of rallying. But that's, we're looking back to 2016, 2017. That's how long ago it was. That's not long at all.
No.
To actually just to be getting behind the wheel, and then getting into the French Championship. And it's quite a short trajectory for him to be at the level that he is now. And I'm sure many people thought in 2023 that was game over for him. Mm-hmm. Not 2020. Yeah, no, 2020, 2022, 2023.
Yeah. 22, because he had the big
2022 was the
really bad,
really bad year. The year that Malcolm probably had a few more grays in his hair. Yeah. And then 2023 British Rally Championship year, WRC 2 year, and look at him now.
Flourished,
he is, headhunted by Hyundai. They wanted him desperately to be part of the team, and he is. And I think that'll be really fascinating to see how that all works, because you've got three really quite strong characters within that team, with Neuville, with Tanak, and with Fourmaux, and really strong competitors as well. So that's going to be fascinating, and I'm really intrigued to see how that all juggles out throughout the year.
And he had to cope with a lot of pressure this year as well, because the expectations, or the weight of the expectations of M Sport, were on his shoulders as the number one driver, and to bounce back, having been removed from the Rally 1 seat, to go and learn the trade almost again, and to come back, and was it 5 podiums he put in by the end of the year?
Yeah,
such a solid result.
No, incredible. But he's not alone in the whole you've had a rubbish year, you dropped, because Elvin went through it, Tanak went through it. Mm-hmm. Tanak probably one of them, the most famous ones to go through it, because he was literally fired twice.
Yeah. D-Mike brought him back,
and then went on to be, a world champion. And is arguably one of the most exciting drivers to watch. When Tanak's got the bit between his teeth, it gives you butterflies in your stomach. And I remember years ago, when he first came into the championship, and he would be setting incredible split times, and we'd all be like, back in the radio days then, all I had was split times and a tracking map to look at. So, you'd lean into the computer, you'd be like, oh, Tanak's times. And it would last for 3 splits that he would be miles quicker than anyone else. And then there'd be a little red dot on the tracking. And that went on for such a long time that he was brilliant. He's in a ditch. But, he honed his craft, and now he's incredible. And I think, for someone like Adrian Fourmaux, because they're all different characters, he's obviously a very quick learner. I mean, this man was not training to be a doctor because he's stupid. The man's got a brain, and he learns very, very fast. And he was learning where things were going wrong. And that 2022 year, which was just abysmal. And I think once you get into a cycle of things going wrong, it's very hard to break it. Once you do break it, then you're on the up. But that year was just...
Yeah, because you talked about what Fourmaux being one of the stars of the 24 season. M Sport, I think, was another star of the year. The amount of podiums they got, like, they are fighting against the machine, really. Like, they're probably half the budget of the Toyota, not even probably Toyota.
Probably not even anywhere close.
Yeah,
but yeah, they again, the M Sport always continue to deliver, and the absolute passion and effort that every team has. That, don't get me wrong, but like you said, the budget isn't there for the M Sport guys, and if there is a way to do something, in a cheaper way, they're always looking for that. And I think the whole team is aware of that, so they are aware that they're under this constraint of budget. But that doesn't change the fact that they all absolutely adore what they're doing and put 110% in. And when then Fourmaux was getting the podiums, you could see the morale in the team just boom, boom, boom. Everyone is walking around, and their shoulders are back a little bit more. Honestly, you really could sense it, and it just gives everyone that extra momentum and motivation. Because the previous year with Tanak, it just despite getting the wins that he got, it wasn't a great year. But this year for M Sport, for many reasons, the podiums, having Cesks come in and really brighten up the season, Gregoire developing as the year went on, and also the documentary series that they made, which is just fantastic. More Than Machine is brilliant. It really is, and it's been lovely to be part of that process with them. And I think for rally fans around the world to be able to see those behind the scenes moments in that way, it shows how much effort goes into it all. I said I interviewed Luca Nia for the Backstories podcast. Luca Nia is the man behind Safety Culture, who are the partner of M Sport, and he is the man behind the idea for More Than Machine. And it was fascinating to speak to him just before Christmas. I've known Luke a few years now, and to see he has an absolute love of this sport, and has since he was very, very young. But he's a very successful businessman, and this is sport is a pastime for him, and something that he can do to decompress from the high flying world of business. But to see his love of actually producing this program, and what's interesting, little kind of fun fact for you all as well, the production team behind it, two of the main producers, Gary Osborne and Pete Coventry, actually worked with me on the original Ford videos back in 2009-10. I introduced Gary and Pete to rallying, and I remember Pete saying to me, because we had time constraints on our little Ford videos, we could just do like 8 minutes pre-event, 8 minutes post-event maximum. They were small videos. And I remember him saying at the time, this warrants a documentary. This is incredible what goes on here. Fast forward 15 years later, and Pete is doing just that. So it was really lovely to see them involved in the whole process, because they understand rallying. Because Gary worked with me on IRC, the Ford stuff. We followed Chris Meek when he won the 2009 IRC, so he knew all about rallying. And then he went on to work with Citroën. So it's really lovely to see the people who've seen a bit of rallying come into this project. And it's still fresh eyes, because you've got producers there who are maybe not so rallying au fait, and that is good to have somebody come in with fresh eyes as well. But the entire project for me has been it's an absolute success. and there's more to come from it as well, which is really exciting.
Yeah, because it's showing the characters behind. We see Rich Milner in the service area, and he's very, maybe not cold's not the right word, but he's very businesslike. But to see him in the documentary, he's great crack.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's why you need, there's room for all of this stuff. The stuff we show on All Live, when we put our cameras in front of people's faces, they know that is going out to a global audience, or that's going to a TV station somewhere, and they become sometimes a bit of a different version of themselves. They become a little bit more serious. And, a lot of the time I've got to say to them, smile. Don't be so frightened of the camera. But, they want to perform at their best. Yeah. But then when you're doing something like this, when you forget the cameras are there, because they're all around them all the time, and you forget they're there, that's when you get the good stuff. That's when you get everyone just relaxed. And as you said, you could see Rich being good crack. But I love the fact that we've got to know the mechanics, and you get to know these people, and where their passion for the sport has come from, and their day-to-day routines and what they're doing. And I love all of that. I think behind the scenes is absolutely where it's at.
Yeah, because we have such a fascinating sport, and it's great to see all the characters involved in it. It's not just the drivers. It's such a bigger picture. It
is a huge picture. There's so many people involved, and their weatherman has played quite a big part in it as well. And people seem to forget, or they're not forget, or maybe just not know how many people it takes to be part of the team. How many different layers there are. And yeah, like I said, I've loved watching it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this year. I know they've got big plans, so that'll be fascinating to see. More to watch.
Yes,
more for us to be glued to computer screens or phones or whatever, if we're not enough.
And Becs, when you're doing the commentary, and there's been quite a few dramatic things happen throughout the year, we had Taka in Sweden when it looked like he was on for his first win, go off in a snowbank. We had the drama of Scott Martin forgetting his pace notebook and reading notes from a phone. We had Kalle Rovanperä almost winning Finland to be taken out 100 meters from the stage end. How do you process all that at the same time, still managing to keep the commentary going, not being totally shocked into silence?
Or yes.
Well, let's talk about Tanak first, because that was such a shock that Chenny and I just reacted as we reacted, and it wasn't until we'd completed the stage and finished that I thought, I have no idea what I said during any of that. I'm like, all I remember is us both, with our hands like this and almost screaming. But I think there's something in my head, probably from the radio days, because I did radio for 17 years. And if you heard something, if somebody told me something, or if I had a text that came through, I had to describe what it was. So when I then watched the commentary back on the Tanak accident, you can all see it's Oy Tanak. We're on board with Oy Tanak. But I say, oh my God, it's Oy Tanak. He's crashed, Oy Tanak. And it's like I'm reinforcing it, because I'm still in that radio mode of, I need to tell people who it is. I'm saying, oh my God. Oh, I need to say what I'm oh my Godding about. And that's in my head. And when I listened back to it, it wasn't quite the mess that I thought it was. But you can hear the absolute shock in our voices. And we really were. We finished the commentary. We were just like, I can't believe what's just happened. And we kept it. Jenny and I just kept saying that to each other. Like, I can't believe what's just happened. We were. The commentary was going on. I was like, Thierry Neuville. Jenny was like, oh my God, what does this mean now for the manufacturers? I was like, forget that a minute. Thierry Neuville's champion. And he was like, oh yeah. It's the most random thing when something dramatic happens like that. Other things like, the Taka, it still pulls at my heartstrings, because I then I was commentating on him doing so well during the rally, then making a mistake, and then I was the one to go out and interview him when he came back to service. And it was probably one of the most difficult interviews of the whole year for me. Not for me, for him.
Yeah.
But it was for me then, because he was explaining what happened. And then he just stopped in his tracks and he couldn't find the words. And he was crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what? And I just gave him a moment to see if he would say something else. And I was like, oh, Tacker, it'll turn around, it'll come for you. And he was just nodding. And then I had to wrap the interview up, and his PR man, Hans, who's fantastic, was there. And he was like, okay, everyone, that's it, that's done, because he just couldn't get any more words out. He wanted to, and Hans was trying to move him on, but he was like, no, and I think he said something a little more, but he was devastated, and all I wanted to do was hug him, but I can't. Yeah. But I could. I might have. I can't remember. I might have, because I don't really care about that stuff, but I can't really do it on camera, because that's, I'm going to get shouted at probably.
Somebody's going to find fault.
Head comes in and be like, oh, put your head on my bosom. It's all okay. But yeah, that was hard. That was hard because he was a broken man at that point. He was a broken man. And, you contrast that then with Scott Martin and the pace notes and, that whole saga and the way it played out. I didn't actually notice it at first. It was our director that noticed, because in the gallery, if you're ever lucky enough to be on event when our gallery is on event, because sometimes our main gallery with all our producers, directors, editors is in Helsinki, and it's a remote broadcast for all of those people, bar the reporters on site and some tech people as well who are on site. But when the gallery is actually on site with us, if you ever get the chance at all to go in there on a tour, then it's well worth it, because you'll see just a huge bank of screens, and the director can be watching a number of onboards and choosing which one obviously to go to next. And he'd noticed that Scott was reading pace notes from his phone. So they switched to it, and the director just says into my ear very quickly, look at Scott. And then you see it, because normally, we will go to an onboard and you don't tend to fixate on one thing. And sometimes you just won't spot it. If you're, talking about something, or if I've looked down to have a look at a split or whatever. And then you're like, shit, he's reading his phone. What happened here? And I'm thinking, where are his notes? And then in the gallery, straight away, our editors are at work. And there's two, sometimes three of them there who are, playing in replays, going back on crashes, blah, 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 blah. But then one of them is like, right, where the hell are these pace notes? So he's gone back to the previous stage. And of course, we had a bit of argy-bargy at the stage end, where one of the time cards wasn't right. Martin Vidar was out of the car. His time card wasn't right. Scott gone out to try and help. And, when we look back on it now, it's kind of a crazy situation, because he got out of the car with his helmet on. He had Elvin's helmet in his hand and his pace notebook. And you're like, why did you get out with these two things in the first place? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
And then you see him just place the notes on the table. And then you see him walk away from the table and the notes are like, God, you left me behind. But the funniest part of it all was when we caught up with him on the road section, because Chenny was out that day. I can't remember who I was commentating with. Could have been, what rally was it? It was Portugal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Mads. Mads Osberg was commentating with me.
Mads was in with you in the commentary.
Yeah. So Chenny was out and about with Kiri, and they tracked them down, and they were doing tyre pressures at the side of the road. And at that point, Scott had no idea where his notes were. So, Chenny's like, I'll go and talk to him. So how'd you get on? How'd you get on with the phone? And he's like, well, needs must. And Chenny's like, bet you wonder where your notes are. He's like, well, now you say it, yeah, I am. And he's like, well, we found them. They're at the stage end. because you can see him from the onboard when they're at the stage start, and he's looking for the book, and it's like, where is it? But what a thing to do! But the fact that he managed to read the pace notes from his phone, the fact that A, they were there already, they were on his phone, and B, that he could actually try and read them, because I don't know about you guys, but I cannot read anything at all when I'm in motion in the car. I mean, I struggle with just reading a text message as it is. Yes. But to read something that small and to be able to follow it as well, big pace notebook, everything is spaced. You're aware of the spaces, you know how it works, but it's on a much smaller screen, and you're trying to flick and move, and you could hear Elvin helping him in certain sections. And I mean, it was one of the stories of the year. It really was. And, again, he handled it with good grace. So did Elvin. But yeah, that'll never happen again. I think the team bought him some kind of weird contraption as a joke. So that he would always be attached to his face notebook. You just knew, probably every Christmas present from now until forever is going to be some kind of, ear pod for his tracking pod for his pace notebook or whatever. Because I would. I mean, that joke's too good not to use forever.
Yeah, and the alarm goes off if you're any more than 10 feet from your pace notes or something.
Yeah. But I love that, that it's those little stories, isn't it? And, that it's not the first time that's happened to anyone, and it certainly won't be the last either. I mean, we'll see that. I mean, there are drivers out there, co-drivers rather, that are using iPads to do all of that work now anyway. But I can't see it filtering down yet to everyone else. Everyone likes the feel of the book in their hands at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose, you can make adjustments and amendments a lot easier in pencil.
Yeah.
But I suppose for me, just the fact that Scott A was so organized to have everything digitally recorded, and then to have the wherewithal to on the spot, right, where's my phone, and I'll pull the notes up and read it from that. Just incredible. And then I suppose the other kind of key thing that stood out for me in the year was Toyota's reliance upon Kalle Rovanperä. We saw him drafted in last minute for Poland. It just seemed incredible that they needed him that badly.
Yeah. I mean, Poland was something else, wasn't it? I mean, that was really unfortunate with everything that happened there with Ogier, and Kalle, got sent the bat signal. Joni Halttunen was in the middle of a tattoo when he got the call, which I think it was his leg. He's having a big thing on his thigh. It's like, put the pen and ink down. I've got to go and use my pen and ink somewhere else. I love the fact that they just came into that, and Poland is not an easy event by any stretch. Came into that completely blind, essentially, and managed to win the rally.
Yeah,
it kind of shows you how good he is, but also for Rovanperä, that awful mistake at Rally Finland at his home event, which he still has not won.
Yeah.
He was on course to win that, and Toyota lose two drivers in one stage. Elvin first to go, and then Rovanperä at the end of it.
Yeah.
That was some commentary as well. I think Chenny had almost taken his t-shirt off in commentary at that point. It was just such a wild stage. We were both looking at each other, going, "What is happening?" We just recovered from Elvin 200 meters, less than 200 meters into the stage, going off the road, and then Rovanperä going into the trees less than a couple of hundred meters away from the flying finish, and.
Yeah, and similar drama in Croatia as well, where Thierry and Elvin both had incidents on the what was to be the power stage, or the pre-run of the power stage.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Croatia's always thrown up wild scenarios, it seems. I really enjoyed Croatia, but I would say Croatia is probably the rally where this year where we really noticed the drivers upset at the point system. because, we had the scenario where, second place was outscored by someone who'd done badly on Friday.
Yeah.
And to the point where at our final Meet the Crew session on the podium, even Jari Matti Latvala, who is the most positive person and diplomatic person in the service park, said, I'm sitting here and my drivers, he said, all the drivers here are, they're sad. They've got frowns on their faces, and they should be delighted to be here because we'd seen such a brilliant battle throughout all of Croatia. And he said, the point system is, it's taking away from the top three. It's taking away from the overall result. That, I think that was the point where that it was really called into question then.
Because in paper it was probably a good idea, but in theory, whenever you have to try and explain, they had to finish Saturday to claim points on Sunday, and suddenly Sunday had a really bad Friday, could have a really good Sunday, and when you're explaining all that to the general public, I think you're losing. I think that was really the problem. It was overcomplicated.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously something needed to change in the point system because we were getting really rubbish Sundays, and it had been happening for a long time. If I'd had to say the words "they're saving tires" any longer, I was trying to make these words go longer. They're saving tires. Oh my God, I was going mad because they were, how many times could I say it? Too many. Something had to change, and obviously people come together to look at what can be the future, what can change. They came up with this point system theory, which in practice didn't work as well as anybody wanted it to. It's certainly not from the driver's perspective. The fans were confused, and we did have to explain a lot during the broadcast. Just to re-emphasize, Saturday points cannot be banked until they've completed Sunday, and you needed to go over and over it. And I think when you get to the point where you need to keep saying things like that, then you're onto a downer. However, I think that said, it did change Sundays for the better. I don't think anybody can dispute that because we have not had a boring Sunday this year. It's been very exciting because they've all had something to fight for. The points on the board on Sunday were big. 7 points this year, last year now, because we're into 2025. It was 7 points plus the 5 from the power stage as well. That was a lot of points. So they needed to push, and they did. Which now is what we'll see this year. It's more emphasis now. The Saturday points are gone. It's the 1, 2, 3 overall is where you get your points come the end of Sunday. Plus, you still have Super Sunday. It just changes to a different point scoring bracket. So the maximum points now that a driver can pick up during the weekend is 35, 25 for a win, 10 for Sunday.
Yeah,
now
that's I won on Sunday and getting the power stage as well. Then.
Yes, so you've got 5 points for Super Sunday, let's say, without the power stage, and then 5 points for the power stage itself. And that is still going to make people push on the Sunday because you've got those points to bag, which, as we've seen this year, last year, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It all comes down to it at the end of the season. So, it is really important, but I'm glad that the emphasis is back now on the overall 1, 2, 3. But, people need to understand it was never from any kind of place of malice. People wanted to make a change in the championship, and they wanted to make it better. And it did and it didn't. It changed Sundays. Sundays were better, but the whole points up to Saturday, for me and from my personal opinion, I wasn't a massive fan of that. But I did love Super Sunday, and I do love Super Sunday, and I think having the extra points on Sunday is going to stop me saying they're saving tyres, I hope, for infinitum.
Yeah. And
I hope I never have to say this in any language ever again.
And the way that, as we discussed earlier, the way the championship panned out, like it all went down to the very last stage of the very last round, So over the the whole year.
It did. And you know, when we look at it from that perspective, that's great.
Yes, it
but
delivered.
what we want is drivers feeling the worth of a win. Yes. They want to feel the win is worth it.
You don't need a calculator to figure out who won.
Well, yeah, you don't need the abacus and a big Venn diagram to show you who's won the rally and how many points they've got. You keep it simpler, and you keep that 1, 2, 3 as the absolute. They are the best throughout the whole rally. And if you want to throw some more points at it on Sunday, you go for it.
Yeah.
But you've got to keep the focus on the overall 1, 2, 3.
For sure. And then I suppose we should start looking forward now to 2025. Monte Carlo, only a matter of days away now at this stage. By the time this goes out, it's quite frightening that it's rolled around already again.
Oh, it's scary, isn't it? I mean, it's scary for me, and I don't have to do the work that the teams have to do. They have to do there is no off season for the teams. There isn't. They end Japan, they get those cars back, and then it's straight into Monte prep. And there's the testing that goes on, ahead of that as well as deciding who's driving for you as well. For M Sport, there were all of those decisions to be made. For the other teams, Toyota made their announcement straight after Rally Japan. They had a press conference in Nagoya the day after Rally Japan to announce the changes that they would be making, the addition of Sami Pyri, and the fact that we'll see Juha Kankinen come into the team as well, which will be interesting this year. And Jari Matti going back into his competitive mode in the historic championship in Europe, which he's delighted at. But yeah, there's no off season. But at the same time, I'm raring to go. I can't wait. Take me there now. It's I've loved the December break. It was a really busy year. I did all of the ERC as well as WRC as well as other things. I'm freelance at the end of the day. I do other sports as well as rallying, and it was a very, very busy year. So December time, I was just like, I'm not doing anything at all. There's nothing happening. Don't even ring me. And it was enjoyable, but now I'm like, back on a plane. Let's go. Let's do it.
This makes the next question really silly. Then you do get the same enthusiasm every January to get going.
Oh
again,
yeah. The year I don't is the year I know it's time to stop doing it.
Uh-huh.
Because you can't do this job unless you love it.
Yeah.
Because as much as it's a job. Obviously, it's a job, but it's a sport I love and had a huge passion for. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of early starts and long days, and there's a
personal
lot
commitment as well. You're leaving home. You're staying. You're missing family occasions. All those kind of things. You're putting all that on hold as well too. But you're doing something you love. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, with WRC and ERC combined, it's 21, 22 weeks of the year away. That's with just the rallying side of what I do. But yeah, you have to love it because you need to give, and I feel that we do, all of us, you need to give everything on event, and you want to walk away from an event feeling that you have worked your hardest and you have delivered as much as you can. You don't want to walk away. And it's like, I'm sure it's from a driver's perspective as well. It's what they feel. They don't want to walk away feeling that they haven't given 100%. And to do that over the course of, in Monte, we start on Thursday night broadcasting, but our work starts on Monday. But broadcasting, that's 4 days of adrenaline rushing through your body, doing that job, and the job you love. And come the end of it, we're all like, we've melted. But you want to feel that way, because if I walked away from a weekend feeling really energized, then I haven't worked hard enough. It does knacker you out, but that's the sport. It is 3 days of full-on competition, and we're not working as hard as the drivers are. Don't get me wrong; it's a different kind of work, but it is full-on. You're immersed in this world. Things are going on elsewhere in your life and in the world. You have no idea about it. Forget it. I come home and someone's like, "Did you see this on the news?" I'm like, "No." Unless it involved a car, a driver, a co-driver, a team boss, I have no idea. because you look through social media, but you're looking at what's happening on the rally, or you're looking for behind the scenes stories or whatever. People. Yeah, we have a group chat with all my girlfriends, and it can be going wild during the weekend, and they're like, "Where are you? Why are you?" I'm like, busy. Commentate. Do you not understand what I'm doing? And they're like, okay.
Chat you Monday.
Mute the group. Mute the group. You do become completely absorbed, and I think everyone can agree with that. Thierry Neuville said to me, we were talking about it a little while ago, this year, in fact, I can't remember what scenario it was, but I think was it in an interview? I can't even remember. Anyway, we were talking about, what happens when you go home from an event. And he was like, so I don't want to talk to anyone for 48 hours. I'm like, oh, thank God. There's someone else who's exactly like me then, because I don't want to speak to anyone either. I get home and I'm like, look, I've just talked the entire weekend. I don't want to, no. But he was exactly the same. He's like, I just need to decompress everything that I've just gone through. I need to get that out of my system. And I'm like, oh, I'm with you to 110%. So, I think it's intense. That's what it is. It's, people, I'm sure people will watch this and go, she's saying it's hard work. It's not that. It's just intense because you're in these moments for such a long period of time. And yeah, as soon as it's done, I mean, Sunday night dinner in Monte is quite a funny one because no one really speaks, because Monte is probably one of the brutalest events that we have in terms of logistics, people traveling all over the place. You're up and down between Monaco and Gap during the week. It's a 4-hour drive each way. It's 8 hours in total that you're on the road just to go back and forth between those places. The drivers are everywhere. And come the end of Sunday, everyone is just like, oh my God, how do we make it through another Monte? I don't know, but we've done it. I was like, yeah, cheers, yeah. Good night, Vienna. We're all just out of it. But I love that because you've given absolutely everything.
Yeah, because you couldn't put on that joviality or that intense. You couldn't make it. You couldn't make it. People would see through it so quickly. No,
yeah,
people would see through it so quickly.
If you're not into this sport and you come in and try and fake that, forget it. I mean, we've had a lot of people who come through, who come in and done some work with us and have walked away going, because they're not into the sport.
Yeah. And you need the passion.
Then you say to them, okay, we're in work, or our call time is 6 a.m. That's a 5:30 leave from the hotel, and we'll probably get back there at 10:30 tonight. And they're like, oh, no. And you do this for 3 days, 4 days? Generally, yes. No. I've seen a lot of people who've come into it thinking they're going to love it, but then realizing that
it's not all glitz and glamour.
No, hell, that is the last thing it is. It's not glitz and it's not glamour. I mean, everyone says to me now, it's friends who know what I do, that. So where's the first stop? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's Rally Monte Carlo. And that, Monte Carlo. And I'm like, look.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, that bit of it is glamorous. That is glamorous.
Yeah.
I was like, but then we're up in the mountains and it can be really cold, and we're up really early in the morning, and there's probably a portaloo in the mix somewhere as well. Portaloos. I mean, I've got some of my girlfriends who go home from work to go to the loo. They won't use the loos in their offices. So they would never survive rallying. I mean, no.
You're lucky if there's a portaloo sometimes, I would say.
I know. Many times it's been a field or a tree, believe you me. And the Ypres countryside has seen a lot of me. I can tell you that now. One very dodgy day after a very large pizza the night before, following Chris Meek around the countryside in Ypres, there's a tree. There is a tree. It might not still be alive now. But yeah, it's not it can be glamorous. It can be. There are very glamorous bits of it, but not. It's like a 5% glamour ratio, I would say.
Yeah, and with the same promoter for the ERC and the WRC, and we've seen last year and this year's a few events are sort of swapping between the two.
Yeah.
Is this becoming a model, or is it just coincidence that that's happened?
No, I think it is. It is a model. It is, I think that's the beauty of it with the promoter across the two championships, is that they can effectively share, and that comes into play for some of the events that maybe don't have full sponsorship for 1 year or whatever. Then they will come into ERC for a year and then go back into WRC. But I think it's great for events like we're seeing the Canaries, which has been part of ERC for a while now, which is a fantastic event. The stages are utterly beautiful, and they will take their step up into WRC this season. Well, we saw it obviously with Latvia last year, and I think it's good to be able to, as we know, there's a wealth of countries out there who love rallying. Thank God for that. And some great countries as well with great stages, and the fact that there are so many that are knocking on the door that want to come into the championship, but can give it a bit of a go with ERC first, maybe, and then come in. Because, look how many fantastic regional championships there are around the world. And, for you guys, in Ireland, so many fantastic rallies that are there. And yeah. The future looks bright for a lot of places.
And like we've seen now in the last couple of years, the ERC has, undergone a rebirth. And like what a championship it's turned out to be. Like the level, the battles, it's intense. Rally 2 has really brought it to life, and it's nearly almost more fascinating than the WRC because there's so many different manufacturers, different drivers. Every weekend it's a different driver at the top of the tree.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of ERC, is that there are so many competitors, and there are so many competitors at a high level. So you've always got around about 10 to 15 people who are competing for podiums on a given event. And I love the fact that, we get the regional champions coming in and competing, and, really taking it to the regular ERC boys sometimes as well. I think that's the beauty of the championship, because it really does keep pushing everybody up another notch and another level. And it's a little bit more relaxed in ERC as well, in terms of the whole feeling of the championship. Not that I'm saying WRC is tense, but it's a different level. You've got the pressures of a different level in WRC, and ERC, it just feels a little bit more, I don't know, people go with the flow a little bit more. They have their own teams there. There's a lot of privateer teams, obviously, and people who are coming in and really trying to work their way up. And they want television coverage. They want to be interviewed. They're desperate to get their faces out there. They're super funny at stage ends. They're real characters. They don't give a damn. And I love that vibe. And I think that really comes across then to the audience as well. But the biggest part of it, as you mentioned, is the fact that we have such fantastic competition. And, when we have ERC and WRC events back to back, sometimes it's a bit of for me, commentating, it's a little bit of a shock then, because I had to keep my eye on 15 drivers who are going for the same goal. And then it changes when you get to WRC, because sometimes there are not so many that are on that competitive form. But then, this season in WRC, I feel has been good for that, and hopefully is going to be better in 25.
For sure.
We always need more drivers. We need more teams. We need more drivers. We've been saying that for years. That's no secret.
No.
And with more drivers, more teams, becomes more competition, which is certainly what we have in the ERC.
For sure. And hopefully with 2027 new regulations going in, hopefully that will open all that up. But that's for another day.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. Yes. I feel. Yeah, we could be here till midnight talking about that. Yeah, but there is a lot of chat about regulations at the moment, and everyone is working extremely hard. And we see it on events, and we see all the meetings that are happening, and the chit chats, and the push, the working groups that are in place to make sure that the new regulations will be a good fit, and will be a good fit for attracting manufacturers, which is the absolute aim. and everyone is working together to ensure that that is the case. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I suppose starting to wrap it up now, Bex. You know, from chatting with you on previous occasions and stuff, you're a lady who always knows what's going on behind the scenes, and you hear all the gossip. And we had, you know, from our own perspective, the fantastic announcement of Josh signing for M Sport for the Rally 1 car. When did you know?
Actually, I didn't know. This was one that caught me by surprise. Yeah, I've got to be honest. Normally, I am across everything that's happening, and mainly because people tell me things. I don't ask. It's just like Auntie Bex, and they just tell me things, and I've had to keep so many secrets over the years. You have no idea how hard that has been sometimes. When I've done podcasts or I'm chatting with people, and they're like, "Oh, so what do you think is going to happen with such and such?" I'm like, I have no idea. And I've known for months about what's happening with such and such. Like a certain world champion deciding not to have a full season, I knew for quite some time before that came out there, and you're keeping all of this stuff inside. So actually, Josh was quite pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know this was happening. I knew 24 hours before it was announced. So I knew before it kind of hit the shelves, let's say. But yeah, I mean, what an opportunity, really, isn't it, for Josh? And you know, everything the Motorsport Island are doing, and John Coyne, wow. I mean, the man's got to be sainted, right?
Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, he will be.
Yeah.
Surely,
at the very least.
the Saint Coyne is going to happen at some point. Yeah, I think it's an amazing opportunity for Josh. Is it going to be a steep, huge learning curve? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes.
But it's the fact that the opportunity is there. He's a young driver. He's going to have to learn fast, which I'm sure he will. But I can't even imagine how he's feeling right now, or certainly how he's going to feel on the eve of Monte Carlo. He's probably going to be shitting himself, quite frankly, because I think every driver is, no matter how many times you've done that rally, because it's such a awe-inspiring event. But I'm delighted for him. I really am. And I think, you know, when you've got that backing behind you and that support, and he joins M Sport, they will, you know, tutor him well there. And Gregoire Munster is kind of a great example as to, you know, how he's progressed throughout the year. He had some Rally 1 appearances the year before in Chile. And in CER, and then to go back to those two rallies this year and to see the difference in Gregoire Munster was quite incredible. And I think for Josh, what an amazing learning curve, what an amazing year he's going to have. And I hope he enjoys every moment, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You have to, as one of our great friends said, you know, you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it. And it'll be tough in Monte because it's tough for every single driver. It'll be tough for Sebastian Ogier, who's, you know, won it multiple times. It will be tough on that first one, but you know, not all eyes are going to be glued to every move that he's making, and that's a good thing. It's like Sesks and it's like Pyrie in 2024. You know, they're young drivers, they're learning their trade. People will, you know, inevitably have a look and see how they're doing, but no one's going to be putting any great pressure on Josh's shoulders. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's not going to be a pressured year. It's going to be a learning year for him. And he more than has the capability behind the wheel. We've seen that. There is a vast, you know, difference and step between Rally 2 and Rally 1. Okay, without the hybrid, maybe not so much. But it is still a big gap. But yeah, I'm sure he'll adapt. And hopefully some good stage end quips as well.
Yeah, he is quite. He's very funny. He is. Yeah. He's very quick. The turn of free is now in fairness. Yep. So
yeah, he is. He is. I was trying to remember the event that he. What event was it this year where he came through the flying finish arse first, or almost arse first with the car? Where was that? We took a wheel off right towards the end. Yeah. There's been so many drivers over the years that have come through the flying finish backwards.
I'm going to say, was it possibly Estonia?
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember off the top of my head now. But you know, you have those learning curve things that happen, obviously. And frustratingly right at the end of the stage. But yeah, Josh has been brilliant for the good humour, and it's always great to hear that at stage ends. And I think, yeah, a new co-driver alongside as well now. It's all kind of changed, isn't it? With James heading into the car of Yuki Yamamoto in Rally 2. It'll be a little bit different, but it'll be great. He'll have a fantastic time, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then for yourself, Rally TV, Rally Live, a few changes, few improvements. What sneaky bits can you tell us?
Oh, I can't tell you too much at the minute, but there are going to be changes this year. Certainly, there's going to be a lot more. I would say a lot more insight and a lot more insight into what's happening in the car from a data perspective. A lot more technical information we're going to be able to deliver to the fans. Certainly, that is going to be one of the things, but also the ability to tell some more stories, some more behind the scenes, kind of out on the stages, liaison section stuff, a little bit more insight into what is going on out there, a lot more storytelling, because yes, we're very focused on obviously what is happening on the stages on All Live, and that's the be all and end all for us. It's the stages that we're trying to show to the world, and but there's a lot more that's going on, and we're going to be trying to deliver that as well. And a lot of it is not going to be implemented immediately. It'll be a gradual implementation of a lot of things. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen on social media that there will be more of this data element that is going to be available for the fans, certainly from our perspective, from the cars, from a tech perspective, which I'm excited about, because the more knowledge you have, the better. Of things that are going on, and that'll be fascinating as the season progresses to see how that comes in. But you will hear more from, let's say, more official channels than myself. I can't reveal it all, gentlemen. I have to keep a little tight-lipped on some things. But yes, there will be changes, and all changes to the good, because we want to grow the product, we want to make it better for everybody, and we value everybody's feedback as well. We want to know what people want to see. I'm not saying there's a limit as to what we can show, but we're not a team of tens of thousands of people and cameramen. And the focus is very much on the stages. But that, as I said, will change a little bit more to a bit more storytelling in between the stages as well. So there'll be more behind the scenes stuff coming through. But I'd love to hear what people would want to see. What do you guys want to see a bit more of? I'm putting you on the spot now.
More manufacturers involvement,
I'm in my interview mode now. So tell me, what would you like to see?
It is that information, that's the bit you're lacking, because I suppose the drivers are so cautious at the stage end to reveal any issue or problem they're having.
Elvin Evans, Mr. Vague.
And Thierry, it's quite, we'll keep stum as well and won't let on what's happening. So it'd be good to know, those sort of features or details, as much as we can do without too much being given away to the opposition.
But,
and I think that's what people, people want more. They always want more. And, we had live radio for years and years, and a lot of people tell me how much they miss that. And I miss it. But I think a lot of people look back at it with rose-tinted lenses as well, because a lot of things went wrong with the radio. And a lot of time we couldn't get stage end interviews or whatever. It was I loved it. Radio was fantastic. And you'll never hear me say a bad word against it. But then you get to be able to, with All Live, see everything. And then you want more. And then you want to see more. And we're just we're a world of consumerism. We want more. Give it to me. But I totally, I'm with you on the technical aspect. And it can infuriate us sometimes that we can't see anything visually wrong with the car. And then the driver will be looking at an alarm or whatever or something, and he will know, but he will just say, it's just a little problem, nothing to worry about. Gone. Nothing to worry about, but you've left within 15 seconds. Okay. So I want to know a little bit more. But sorry, you were going to say something? Yeah,
I suppose it has got very PR handled. It's they have to be saying the right thing. They're almost scared to say the wrong thing. Or we've seen with the FIA, and Formula One. drivers been censored, yeah, and that's a wee bit sad because the stage end especially, it is such a an instant reaction. They haven't time to compose themselves. They haven't time to gather their thoughts. So.
There is no other sport in the world which does that. There is no other sport where you have just risked your life effectively for 20 minutes and someone just goes, "How is that? Amazing!" And they're like, there is no other sport that does that, and I love that, and I don't want to censor the drivers. They can say what the hell they want at the stage end, and if I have to apologize for them swearing, I am happy to do that, but I would rather hear them swear. Get it out. It's the heat of the moment. And sometimes there are going to be instances like that where you've had probably a huge moment, and you come to the stage end and all this stuff comes out and you're like, gone. That's fine. That's great, because that's passion. You care about what you're doing, and you've shown us that. And if there are a few expletives in there that I need to hoover up, I'm happy to do that. More power to you. You swear away. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, because if you run up to, I don't know, I don't even watch football, but how old am I? David Beckham, Ronaldo, some of those guys after scoring a goal, they're not going to be going, "Oh, that was a lot of, I got a lovely touch in from there and I cross it over here." They're going to be...
It's a jolly lovely goal. I really enjoyed that. No, of course they not. But then no one goes and interviews them, but we do. We stick a microphone into a hot environment where anything can be said out of those drivers' mouths. And I never want them to feel that they can't do that.
Can't say it.
Because that ruins the entire, ethos of what we're doing. They need to be able to express themselves. They should be able to do that freely without any worry.
Yeah, the event that OJ was being very careful with what he said. You can see it was hurting him to have to not say what he wanted to say.
But I understand why he did that as well. He was making his own. That's the only way he could protest. By doing that, the whole heat of the moment, the swearing thing, that doesn't bother me at all. I don't like people swearing just for the sake of it at a stage end. If something is, if they're just saying it, if nothing's happened and they're just swearing, that's not right. That's rude in my mind. That's a little bit different, and you need to be, you need to be aware that, in the heat of the moment, it's a different scenario when things have happened. But if you've just come through a stage, you pootled through. I say pootle in with the biggest respect, but if you're not competing for anything and you just get to a stage end and you start swearing ridiculously, then that's not right. But for all other occasions, then it's it's completely fine. And I think there needs to be a balance struck. There needs to be an understanding that we do this, and more often than not, people don't swear. They don't. When you look at it across a whole weekend of how many hours we broadcast for, which I never really want to tot up because it's a lot.
There could be only two swear words for the weekend.
It's really not. It's really not that much at all. And it's you want to hear people's thoughts, and some people express themselves without language. Some don't, and that's it at the end of the day. But there is no other sport that does it quite like ours, where that microphone goes in immediately as they finish a stage. I mean, I can't think of any other sport that does that.
And then I suppose the final question, predictions for 2025?
Go away! Get out!
Hopes for 2025 then maybe would be a better way of it.
Oh, that's even worse! Predictions. Haven't really thought about it yet. But I predict that we will have the championships going down to the wire again in Saudi Arabia. And I predict that Adrian Fourmaux will win a rally. And I predict that Taka will win a rally this year. That's all you're going to get. That's all I've got.
So Connor, like, what an absolute privilege to spend that time chatting to Becs. You know, we've said it before and we'll probably say it again, but what a legend.
Oh, look, just, you know, the ultimate professional and just such a lovely, warm person. And I genuinely hope everybody listening and watching this got as much out of it as we did, because we certainly had a great time chatting to Becs, both on and off air.
That's for sure. And, like, you know, no matter what you asked her, she answered it, and, you know, and more. And, like, that's all you can ask for. Whenever you ask somebody a question, that they give, you know, the full answer as well too, you know. So, Becs, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much. So that is the 2025 season, episode 3. And until the next time, take care, speak soon, and bye.
That's the proudest day and the proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.